Aristotle, a short introduction. Hello, this is Dr. Bin Song for the course of Introduction to Philosophy at Washington College. After discussing Socrates and Plato, let's address the third and final finger in the trinity of ancient Greek philosophy, Aristotle. In medieval Europe, when the origin of the modern institution of university started to emerge as stellar academic hubs, such as the University of Bologna, University of Paris, and the University of Oxford, the name of Aristotle was replaced with the term the philosopher whenever it was mentioned by scholars, teachers, and students in these institutions. For these scholars, Aristotle's architectonic philosophy represented everything that humans could know about the created world through human reason. And what universities were meant to do was, on the one hand, to add Christian faith on top of it to create a theology. Therefore, the scholastic slogan that philosophy is made to theology. And on the other hand, to inherit and develop all other branches of the Aristotelian philosophy in light of new observations and human experiences. You may wonder why it was Aristotle, not Plato, whose philosophy constituted the pedagogical principle of medieval universities. The reason lies largely in the difference of the two philosophers' style of thoughts and genre of writing. Plato's thought was very idealistic, who admires an eternal and unchanging real world of ideas vis-à-vis the material, less real world, vulnerable to decay and corruption. Since the material world was not that important to him, quite often Plato made the points he wanted to make in the sharpest way, regardless of what previous philosophers had said on related topics. Moreover, Plato wrote in the genre of Socratic dialogue, and would not hesitate to use Socrates' mouth to speak for his own thoughts, which increased the power of persuasion, while not necessarily conveying more knowledge. In contrast, Aristotle believes philosophy starts from empirical observations of natural and social phenomena, and from investigating the views of his philosophical predecessors on shared topics. Therefore, when you open one volume in the complete works of Aristotle, the Metaphysics for instance, you will read many of pre-Aristotelian philosophers' views on the origin of the world, as well as the empirical evidences that these views have referred to, before you can get to Aristotle's own view. When writing his own views, Aristotle was also fond of using the logic of syllogism to organize varying statements according to the degrees of generality of categories. For instance, in the books of On the Heavens and the Physics, we read that there are two parts of the entire universe: the sublunary earthly world, which comprises four elements, air, fire, water, and earth, and the superlunary heavenly world, which comprises the divine element called the ether. Overall, all things in the world were moved by the unmoved mover called nous, and the self-perpetuating and self-contemplative nature of the nous constitutes the ultimate purpose for which all beings in the world move and strive. Similarly, in the book of the Politics, we are presented with a purportedly exhaustive taxonomy of political regimes that human beings could ever observe. Aristotle employed the standard of whether a state is governed by one, a few, or many people to distinguish three pairs of regimes: monarchy, tyranny; aristocracy, oligarchy; polity, democracy. Within each pair of regimes, the former is thought of as being superior to the latter because it rules for the benefits of all people, rather than just for the ones of the people in the circle of rulership. For instance, a polity is the regime where one party is elected among many while being able to represent the interests of all citizens, while democracy is the one where an elected party, due to the non-educated nature of its constituency, can only represent its own self-interest. Overall, Aristotle believes a polity is the best regime because he thinks, first, humans are not God, and thus no power can be held by either one singular person or one circle of elite forever, no matter how virtuous and intelligent they are. And second, the regime of polity trains citizens to be virtuous and educated, and therefore can help to achieve the ultimate goal of human life, eudaimonia, human flourishing or happiness, which is furthermore an invitation of the perpetually self-contemplative divine life of nous. Not only did Aristotle have a more organized structure within each branch of philosophy, he also had an architectonic vision of philosophy as a whole. For Aristotle, the meaning of philosophy is virtually synonymous with science, and it includes the entire body of human knowledge. He says this body of human knowledge comprises three parts. First, theoretical philosophy, which contains knowledge for the sake of knowledge itself without further concern with their practical application. In this category, we have physics to deal with objects capable of movement, mathematics to target objects without movement, and metaphysics to investigate the most generic features of things in the world. Second, practical philosophy, which is concerned with human praxis and actions, such as ethics, political philosophy, economics, and rhetoric. Finally, what Aristotle called productive or poetic philosophy studies the products rather than the actions of human beings. In modern philosophical terms, this productive philosophy is concerned with both technology, such as house building, shipbuilding, and other craft works, and aesthetics, namely the theory of beauty, as the beauty is represented by artworks. In the pedagogical sense, Aristotle thinks each of these branches of philosophy as a liberal art, since these subjects help humans to grow to be more virtuous and educated, and hence to be more fit for the collective deliberation on varying issues in an educated democracy, which Aristotle terms polity. Now, I believe you have a better sense of why Aristotle's works were taken as textbooks, and his philosophy was treated as the pedagogical underpinning of medieval universities. In a word, its organized, systematic, and scholarly quality is just so ready to be put into practice in classrooms. Given the historical roots of modern universities in Aristotelianism, it will be highly probable that you will meet the name Aristotle sometime or somewhere during the study of your major, whether it is physics, chemistry, biology, political science, art history, etc. However, since Aristotle's thought has decisively shaped the intellectual landscape of medieval Europe, the birth of modernity in the same territory was also greatly influenced by his thought. Noticeably, this influence normally took a form of counteraction and resistance, because many aspects of modern thought derives from a critique or a revision of Aristotle's thought. Regarding the profound changes modern Europe went through in that shaping period of 16th to 18th century, an effective angle to investigate these changes is from the disciplinary divisions that medieval universities once operated upon. In the area of theology, we have the movement of Protestant Reformation. In the area of humanities, we have the movement of Renaissance. In natural science, we have modern scientific revolution. While in social science, we have the birth of modern capitalism and varying political movements leading to the establishment of modern democracies. Normally, proponents of these shaping modern movements were graduates of medieval universities who studied the concerned subjects in various departments. As mentioned, since the institutional structure of medieval universities was designed per the Aristotelian thought, we can imagine why the transition between pre-modern and modern human societies was philosophically manifested by critiques and contrasts that modern thinkers made about the ancient Aristotelian thought. Let me enumerate several examples of the contrast between Aristotelianism and its modern counterparts. Physics. In the works of the Physics and On the Heavens, Aristotle refuses to use geometry to form hypotheses about the movement of natural objects because he thought physics deals with objects that can move, while mathematics studies ideal objects that cannot move. In other words, physics and mathematics are fundamentally different areas of human knowledge, and thus different methodologies should be adopted for the studies of them accordingly. However, modern science starts from Copernicus, who proposed a geometrical model to conjecture whether the sun can be put into the center and all planets revolve around it. In other words, modern science starts from humans to ask questions to nature, and then to design experiments forcing nature to answer whether those questioning hypotheses can be verified. During the process to conduct the exact measurement of natural phenomena and construct deductive theoretical systems, mathematics is irreversibly incorporated into physics. Accordingly, the transition from the old Aristotelian physics, solely relying upon observations and categorizations, to the new Galileo's one, structured by mathematical rationality and technologized experiments, marks the birth of modernity in the area of natural philosophy. Ethics. In line with the modern mentality committed to discovering calculable and universal natural laws in natural science, Kant articulated a new standard of modern ethics called deontology. In deontological ethics, the highest principles of human behaviors are thought of as being universal and necessary, so that regardless of situations, all humans need to abide by these principles in order to be moral. For Kant, the ubiquitous existence of reason and free will is taken as the foundation of ethics, so that he prescribes that every human must be treated as an end itself rather than merely as a means. Is such a universal deontological rule by which every human being must abide in all their behaviors. Another equally important ethical theory in the modern era is John Mill's utilitarianism, which says the principle of ethical human behaviors is to calculate whether one decision can lead to the maximal amount of benefits so as to increase the overall happiness or pleasure of human life. Clearly, this utilitarian ethical rule resonates a lot with the basic assumption of modern economics that humans are individual rational beings aiming to maximize their own interests in economic activities. However, different from either approach of these modern ethics, Aristotle believes the cornerstone of ethics should be to explore how to cultivate a human being to become a fully flourished human person. Aristotle's opposition lies in his insights that no matter how many rules we rationally understand, we still cannot be a good human person unless we know how to apply these rules in concrete situations. Also, the consequences of good character traits for a virtuous human being, such as courage, temperance, and benevolence, are normally non-calculable. Even so, virtues as habits of good human living are still needed for the sake of eudaimonia, the full flourishing of human life. Therefore, Aristotle's ethics is concerned with the formation of human personality, and is taken as a sort of virtue ethics, alternative to its modern counterparts of deontology and utilitarianism. Politics. Perhaps no area is more contrasting with our modern consciousness in Aristotle's philosophy than politics. As depicted by Thomas Hobbes' thought experiment on the state of nature of human conditions, a state is normally thought of by modern thinkers as a lesser evil that we human beings cannot avoid. This is because without a state, everyone will be an enemy to each other, and even the most powerful human being cannot survive the perpetual status of war and strife in the pre-contractual state of nature. So, in our modern consciousness, the rationale of the existence of a state is to protect individual human rights, in whatever sense these rights are conceived by varying philosophies and traditions. However, for Aristotle, the public human life in a state, or a polis using a Greek word, is a necessary good, and from the perspective of human sociality, it is even the highest good, since without a state, humans cannot practice their unique ability of speech, to think, debate, and hence live a virtuous, just, and good human life, while pondering what kind of regime is the best fit for humans. Aristotle also believes a representative regime, whose authority derives from the election by an educated and informed electorate, can create the needed leisure and atmosphere for all citizens to strive for being virtuous and educated. In other words, in modern thinkers' mind, a state has no function to perfect its citizens, while for Aristotle, humans are in a process of formation, and without a justified public life in a state, the potential of being a good human remains unactualized. Therefore, in ultimate sense, it is a duty rather than a right for every citizen to build and participate the public life in a state. Moreover, Aristotle also has a notoriously non-egalitarian view towards the dignity of human beings, and thinks that slaves and women must succumb to the governance of masters and men because they are thought of as being naturally unfit for rational deliberation over issues of public life. Nevertheless, since Aristotle's philosophy runs so contrastingly with modern consciousness, why do we still need to learn it today? It is worth our notice that today's human society is postmodern, post-industrial, multicultural, and undergoing a profound process of increasing globalization. In this brave new world, many assumptions of modern philosophy that were taken by modernists as the foundation of human society were reflected, challenged, and quite often reformed. If you think Aristotelian physics is too naive to apply mathematics, his view on the teleological explanation of biological phenomena still holds on to much value in light of the developments of contemporary evolutionary and genetic biology. If you think human behaviors and purposes are so complex as to refuse the simplified assumption of modern economics that rationalizes humans as calculative machines, Aristotle's virtue ethics may still provide insights on how to live a good human life. Finally, the overt endorsement of slavery and misogynism is really worth condemning, even if we put it in the full context of the social and economic conditions of ancient Greece. However, every human needs virtues to enact their duties entailed by the roles they play in varying human relationships. This Aristotelian insight on the perfectibility of individuals' communal rules will still give many contemporary minds a pause whenever they think isolated individuals or atomic individualism is the only legitimate starting point for good human relationships. In a word, the philosopher once shaped the intellectual landscape of medieval Europe. His thought stimulated the creation of modernity in varying aspects of human society, yet with normally a contrastive mode. Eventually, today, we still have many things to learn from Aristotle, such a noble, liberating, and encyclopedic mind who enjoyed his philosophical prime time towards the end of the golden era of ancient Greek philosophy.